Of this church and one of the co-founders of the Rad Festival. He's also the founder of a number of organizations that promote radical life extension. He's a director and co-founder of a world-famous consumer advocacy organization that funds research and disseminates information to consumers about optimal health, and a major figure in cryonics. Mr. Falloon has made hundreds of media appearances, has been interviewed by dozens of newspapers and magazines. He's a cornerstone in the unlimited lifespan movement worldwide. Tonight, he's the king. Let's all welcome Mr. Bill Falloon.
Thank you, Neil. This is going to be a little bit of an interactive talk. I put these things together rather quickly, but what I found statistically somewhat confirmed in a way that I think everyone's going to be able to see how the mortality trends have been going, and should hopefully make people appreciate where we are today, because if we thought the way we used to be pretty bad. Now, how many people in this room think there's anything good about nature? Okay? Well, I want to try to change your mind. And the reason I want to do that is you're looking at a chart, and the first line goes back 33,000 years BC. This is pure, unadulterated nature. Human life expectancy, under 20 years. Now, there's a caveat: infantile mortality, very high back in those days, but nonetheless, people on average lived naturally under 20 years. And as you move forward, technology very slowly evolved to the point where we are today, where a healthy person, a person who takes care of their health, can have a life expectancy that greatly exceeds 80 years. That's a rather big difference, but it took a heck of a long time. It took 35,000 years to get from living to be about 19 average years to over 80 if you want to take care of yourself, or if you don't take care of yourself, it's still not that bad. It's about 78 right now, which includes all sexes, all races. Certain races do not live as long as others right now. Now, this is the chart that really impressed me, and I know you can't see it. I'm going to blow it up a little bit next, but it just shows you that between the point of time when we lived just 20 years maybe on average, we got up to about 30 years, but that flatlined. It stayed that way for centuries, where people lived an average of 35 years in this country. The green arrow is the United States. And you can see around 1867, it starts to move up, where people started practicing some hygienic living standards, and they developed some better methods of treating and preventing diseases. But you look at Africa, it stayed flat. And that's because the technology didn't make it into Africa. It stayed away. People continued dying around the age of 30, all very naturally. No technology means you die and suffer naturally. But as technology evolves, well, the tables start looking a heck of a lot better. And as you can see, starting around 1900, we had life expectancy of around 47, and that's gone up to about 78 today. And again, that includes both sexes, all races. If you are a Caucasian female, your life expectancy is much higher, certainly, than an African-American male. They still are living about 9 years less than typical Caucasian, because they don't always have access to the technology that everyone else does. But as you can see, life expectancy has changed, but it's happened really slow. But it's picking up now. It's picking up really fast. So what I did is I took those charts that are hard to read, and I put them into different time frames so that you can all relate to this, because I don't see any kids in this room, which means that you remember being alive. And I certainly remember my formative years, 1960 to 1980. Look at that. Average lifespan, only 67 years. And I guess I should have been grateful, because that previous time frame of 1900 to 1940 was only 55 average years. And again, that caveat about the infant mortality rates, that does distort this data in a way that makes the early years look somewhat worse. But if we were dedicated, as we all are in this room, to living longer, back in 1900 without antibiotics, without the knowledge we have to put in a coronary stent, do a cardiac bypass, treat malignancies in ways that many people are being cured. Hey, 47 years in 1900, rather pathetic. A lot of people in this room are over 47. On average, we wouldn't be around. But that 55 years between 1900 and 1940, that wasn't that long ago. And I think some people in this room may have been alive at that time, only 55 years of average lifespan. And when I was growing up, I had neighbors in their 40s who would have an acute myocardial infarction, a heart attack, and they die. But people didn't talk back then that they were so young because so many other people in their 40s and 50s were also dying of sudden cardiac arrest. Where now we've had these incredible improvements in emergency response where a paramedic team shows up, they'll do CPR, they'll get you into an ER room, they can do a quick scan to see a blocked artery, insert a stent, do emergency bypass surgery. We've got millions and millions of people alive today because of technology, but that didn't exist between 1900 and 1940, and frankly, it wasn't very good up until after 1980. So you look at these time frames, and you can see that life expectancy is exponentially improving, especially when you figure that for 33,000 years, it kind of flatlined there around 30 to 35 years. We are seeing this improvement. And I hope this impresses people. I hope it enables them to realize that if enough resources are put into improving healthcare, improving ways to prevent and treat diseases, we're going to shoot that life expectancy table up exponentially higher. And as it relates to what you can do to live longer, this is a CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention report, and there's nothing really unusual about it. Those dark purple areas are where people don't have long lifespans. They behave in terrible ways as it relates to their own personal health. Heavy cigarette smoking. They eat fried foods. They eat the worst type of foods. They don't touch vegetables and fruits and supplements. They don't really do anything to intervene into nature, and they actually intervene the wrong way. And that death belt has been around for many, many decades. And the only reason North Carolina isn't in there is they've had an influx of people from other parts of the country who do take care of their health better. But you go there from South Carolina all the way down into Louisiana, up into Arkansas and Oklahoma, and what you have there are people dying prematurely because they're simply not availing themselves to technology that exists today. It exists today. And something that distorts this chart a little bit, because we're all here in Florida, and you're saying, well, how come Florida? Why are people dying there more often than, let's say, New York? Well, that's because a lot of people from New York retire and they move to Florida. Okay, so they come here at an older age, so that's one of those factors. But the best states to live as far as longevity, you look there at Minnesota and Colorado, and Utah's often up in that area too, as far as people who are practicing living good, healthy living patterns. The reward is you do live a heck of a lot longer. You look at the contrast between Louisiana, which is the state that has probably the highest mortality rate right now, and you compare that to a Minnesota or a California, and there's some huge differences. So it means we have control over how long we can live in this cycle. But what we need, of course, is technology that evolves. And what frustrates me, as everyone knows, because I've said it here many, many times, is that very wealthy people have failed to recognize what I believe everyone in this congregation has, and that is if you put some money into technology, guess what? That technology could potentially save your life. And Fred DeLuca, co-founder of Subway, worth an awful lot of money, and he died of a common leukemia, a leukemia that could have been more effectively treated, he could have taken some steps ahead of time to not be dead right now. But he died in 2016, and maybe he wasn't aware of these emerging technologies. So we'll give him a little slack, because in 2016 and 15, whatever, there weren't the advances that have been made over the last 18 months. That's how fast technology is improving. So Fred DeLuca took his money to the grave with him, did not spend it the way that I'm going to be encouraging a lot of people in a lot of different groups this year to spend their money. Henry Flagler was a very modest individual, so modest that the city of Miami is named Miami and not Flagler, because Flagler is responsible for both Miami and Palm Beach and a railroad. He built a railroad from Jacksonville and eventually extended it all the way to Key West. This is before they had mechanized earth-moving equipment. This is pick and shovel work through the hot, humid sands, swamps, rivers, all the different adverse elements. He did things that very few people could conceive of, and he's a co-founder of Standard Oil. People associate Rockefeller with Standard Oil, which was a huge company, but without Flagler, Rockefeller would not have had his success, and he stated that several times, that they were partners. But what Flagler did is he retired and then set up the Florida East Coast Railroad and set up the hotels in Palm Beach, and I could do a whole presentation on Henry Flagler. But the question I want to ask everyone in this room, I mean, he was outrageously wealthy. He knew how to enjoy his wealth. He built himself mansions, incredible places to enjoy himself. But if you had a choice right now, if you had a choice right now to travel back in time to 1890, which would have been a couple decades before Henry Flagler died, meaning he had some health, he had some good health, would you rather be Henry Flagler, or would you rather live today as a domestic servant, you know, being a housekeeper, a gardener? Where would you like to be? I mean, Henry Flagler had anything he wanted at the time, anything. And he had a lot of it, and he had a lot of ambition. He saw his work fulfilled. But how many people would want to travel back to 1890? Okay? Yeah, a day would be a heck of a lot of fun. But when you think about it, what Henry Flagler lacked that we take for granted today, so enormous, that our household servants, that's not the appropriate word, or housekeepers, maids, gardeners, whatever, they get to go home for the most part to something called air conditioning. And even if they don't have any medical insurance, in South Florida they can go to an ER room and get an antibiotic. Well, Henry Flagler didn't have any of that. I mean, lifespans when he was around were around 45 years of age. But if he had heartburn, and a lot of you probably have had heartburn, it's rather severe, there's nothing much they could do about it. You just suffered. You just suffered. Appendicitis, people were dying of that up till the early 1920s because the doctors couldn't come to a consensus as to how best to treat it. And all of these other benefits that we enjoy today, and we don't have to be wealthy, we can just be at the lower end of society, and we live much, much better than Henry Flagler. For those who did without electric a little bit for the last hurricane, we kind of can relate to how terribly hot and humid it is in this state. And if I had a choice of living in Henry Flagler's incredible house, and it's now a museum, by the way, on Palm Beach Island, nice place to visit, but to live in Henry Flagler's house without air conditioning, or just live in a regular apartment that is air conditioned, I'd want to be in that regular apartment. I mean, we all have different heat tolerances, but I wouldn't consider living in that mansion and owning all that Henry Flagler has and being hot around the clock, in addition to not having access to all of these other technologies. And the list goes on and on and on about how a lower income person today is living far better than one of the wealthiest men in the world not that long ago. Henry Flagler died in 1913. He had a number of chronic ailments that could have been treated today. They didn't have those treatments back then, so he was in pain on a consistent basis. And he had some sort of a cerebrovascular accident, probably a stroke, fell down some stairs, and he slowly died in year 1913. But he didn't have any of this. He had some terrible marriages. Back in those days, you had to have a reason to legally get divorced. The government and religion were kind of worked together, and they just didn't believe divorce should be done unless there was a really good cause. So what Henry Flagler did is he bribed the governor of Florida and the state legislature to change the law, to permit him to divorce a woman who was legally insane. She was committed to an insane asylum, but it still was illegal to divorce her, so he had the law changed in Florida. And he was the only one that took advantage of that particular law before it was again changed. But those are the types of activities, when you have that kind of money, you can do. But even that was very stressful, and it delayed him many, many years, stuck him in a bad marriage. So it's not just the technology improvements we enjoy, but it's the cultural changes where we can maybe see reality in a way that's more practical, as opposed to sticking someone in a horrific marriage forever, because that's just the way the law is. But the last item on this list, and these lists could go on, is that we, and that includes, again, lower income people, enjoy about 31 more years of healthy life expectancy. We can enjoy that right now, and we also have the opportunity to dramatically improve on that. So I'm going to try to use some of these historical analogies when I talk to groups of very wealthy people. A lot of them will be in Palm Beach County, and say, where would you rather be? Would you rather go back and be Henry Flagler and be like the richest guy anywhere and have anything you want? Or maybe the person who takes care of your garden? Where would you rather be? And that gardener's got it made. I mean, he's really living a heck of a lot better. Now, this is the billionaire who died since the last church service. I'm going to start getting rather vituperative about these people, because we are getting the word out to wealthy people that if you put just a tiny amount of money into some very important research, you may live a lot longer. These people, up until now, have not been doing it. The ultra-wealthy Silicon Valley people are doing it. These are younger individuals who can see the future a heck of a lot better than older individuals who don't have much time to go. The younger guys are putting money into research. The older people who have accumulated vast amounts of money and don't really even have anything to do with it because they're so debilitated, they're failing. So here's the wife of the founder of Amway, and worth a heck of a lot of money, and suffered a stroke, leukemia. She suffered miserably and didn't do anything that I know about it that targeted her problems. I say target because many of these wealthy people are philanthropists. They donate money to charities that spend 60 to 70% of it on administration. It's not targeted research. They should find a scientist who can address their ailments, find a way to treat leukemia and stroke better, and share it with the world. They benefit themselves, they benefit everybody else. Again, these people are taking their money to the grave with them. It is absolutely absurd in today's world. It wouldn't have been for Henry Flagler. There was nothing he could have done with all that money. There wasn't any research that he could easily identify. There was no internet to find what some creative scientist was proposing. So you can't blame Henry Flagler, but we can certainly blame the people who are learning about improvements in potential ways to make people live longer and not availing themselves. Our ultimate goal over the next 12 months is to systematically introduce many, if not all, of these therapies into human beings with the ultimate goal of reversing their aging process. And this research is being done right now on a lot of these therapies. The NAD infusion research is done. It works. Dasatinib research is done. We're going to have data very soon. Rapamycin research starts probably November 10th in Southern California. Young plasma, that's being done. That's being done by a number of wealthy people who are buying young plasma, infusing it into their bodies, and that's being done in a number of different places. Mesenchymal stem cells. University of Miami is working on that. They may be setting up a clinic in Nassau, Bahamas to be able to do it and not worry about the FDA shutting them down. So everything you're seeing up there is moving ahead. I had dinner with Dr. Dipnarai Mahara last week. He's got FDA approval for his investigational new drug study where he will mobilize the bone marrow of healthy young people so that their stem cells are released into their blood. He will then remove their plasma along with the stem cells and put it into a concentrate which he believes will reverse aging. And I believe it will reverse aging based on all of the data we've reviewed. All we're missing to do Dr. Maharaj's study is about $10 million. The other studies, by the way, are very inexpensive. To study people on rapamycin or dasatinib, those are drugs that are readily available. But to mobilize the bone marrow of healthy young people, well, you got to pay them quite a bit of money because it's not very convenient for them to undergo this, and there are a lot of expenses involved in that particular project. So this upcoming season, mainly in the Palm Beach area, we've developed some very interesting contacts there, people who want to do something about aging and get the whole group together. We're going to be promoting raising money specifically targeted at funding Dr. Maharaj's project and others, but at least with Dr. Maharaj, he's right there in Palm Beach. So those people can not only fund his research, they can potentially participate in the study itself and derive those benefits. So the final slide is as it relates to what we should be doing right now, because we have two choices. Henry Flagler did not have these choices. Most people didn't before really year 2014. We can be part of the control group, do absolutely nothing about our aging process. Do nothing. And we know exactly what's going to happen to you. You're going to degenerate. You're going to develop malignancies, dementia, atherosclerosis. All of this will inevitably happen to you. It may happen in a major way when you're 85, 95. Some people make it up over 100, but it's going to happen. Or you can be part of the experimental group. And there's always a risk when you experiment, and the biggest risk actually with these experiments are just iatrogenic. That means something that just goes wrong with the administration of the therapy. Let's say an infection in the IV line. That would be one of the risks that you take. I'm willing to take those risks, and I've proven that because I've had a heck of a lot of IVs put into my body already. But you look at the potential advantages of joining the experimental group, wow, you can circumvent everything that's inevitable, potentially circumvent all of that if you're part of the experimental group. So what I will be doing is encouraging people to move from that control group on the left side of that slide and into that experimental group. Move into it with their bodies and or their money and or their activism, their volunteerism. We've got medical doctors who are volunteering to help us. We've got laboratories, a local laboratory here, it's very big. They said they'll do a whole lot of analysis for us at absolutely no charge. They want to see this technology move forward. These are the activists that we're seeking to amalgamate into a group that will accomplish the objective of this church, and that is for mankind to develop these technologies that will enable life to transform into an environment of perpetual duration, perpetual happiness, perpetual progress. And this, to me, says it all. And the entire world, for the most part, is that control group. They are aging, so we don't need placebos when we do these studies here. We know what's going to happen if you don't intervene. So is there anyone here who would like to be part of the control group? Control group. Okay, that's okay, and that's okay. Okay, you want to watch us experiment, and that's okay. And for some of the people, by the way, who are going to put up money, one of the reasons they're putting up money is they want to see how it works in other people. But I'll tell you, if you delay too long, and this is what's scary, I've had 3 rather respectable people tell me this, that it could be we find a way to cure aging, but it cuts off at a certain age. That age might be 85, it might be 90, which means that everyone under, let's say, 85 is rejuvenated, but the people over 85, the technology isn't there in time. They just slowly die while they watch everyone else grow younger. That's the penalty if you don't participate and do something to intervene into the aging process. And I know a lot of you are doing it, and I appreciate that and respect that. So that's my presentation for those who want to be part of that experimental group, rescueelders.org. I think most of you have registered on that. If you haven't, please put your name in there and indicate, do you want to be a volunteer? Do you want to donate, self-fund, self-experiment? Or do you just want to be kept up to date? That's the option too. You can just be kept up to date with emails and you can see what's going on. So I think that's the end of my presentation tonight. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Bill Falloon? Question way over there. Hold on until I bring the microphone to you so that we can get your voice on for the live stream.
So if I had a very wealthy patient, 85 years old, Parkinson's, and could just pay for anything, I would send them to you and they could self-fund and spend $1 million on themselves?
Yeah, they could. And what we do is we refer them to medical doctors who have research protocols. They don't, when they say me, I'm not the one that does it. I have put together the Rescue Elders site so we could network the doctors with the patients. And if a person had Parkinson's, probably the first therapy I would recommend are NAD plus infusions. That stands for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. That is an energy factor, and what it does is it repairs DNA. And there was a question asked by Rich about the damage done by these herbicides to DNA. It's terrible. I mean, there's a lot of environmental factors out there that are not good for us, but if we can repair the DNA, we can mitigate some of that type of damage. So a Parkinson's patient, number one, NAD plus infusions, which are available right now, but we'd like to also purge their brain of senile cells, and that's what that dasatinib drug does. And it may be just one dose of dasatinib with high-dose quercetin, and we've gotten rid of those senile cells. We've got some good preliminary data on that. The rapamycin to clear out the debris that accumulates inside your aging cells that are functioning okay, but they're somewhat clogged up. Rapamycin cleans out that cellular junk, as Aubrey de Grey has been known to say. And then probably some healthy young plasma infusions, because Johnson & Johnson is funding a $50 million study out in San Francisco where they're using young plasma and they're using it to treat early stage Alzheimer's disease. And there seems to be some benefits. So a Parkinson's patient, maybe their fourth intervention would be young plasma. So start off with the NAD plus infusions, repair that DNA, dasatinib, get rid of those senile cells that are just clogging up cell-to-cell communication, rapamycin, get rid of the accumulated cellular debris, and then fresh young plasma. We don't know how much of it we should administer, but at least get them out of that Parkinsonian state where they're trembling and they're freezing up in the middle of the day. Try to get them to at least reduce their medication dosage, if not get them off of it completely.
Question over here, Bill.
Yes, Bill, hi. Don't you have an NAD supplement?
Yeah, here's the thing with the NAD. If you're under 45 years of age, you can take a precursor to NAD plus called nicotinamide riboside. Now, that is available all over the place right now. It's gotten to be rather popular. If you're under 45, that will boost your NAD levels. But if you're over 45, what we're finding is your NAD levels are so low, you can't sufficiently boost it with just a supplement. You should undergo 3 to 6 NAD plus infusions. Boost your NAD levels up to a youthful level, and then maintain them with the dietary supplement. But if you're over 45 or 50, it's good to take a supplement because you are going to increase them maybe 80, 90%, but you need to increase them really maybe 400 to 900% if you're older. In other words, an older person's NAD plus levels may be down to under 1 or 2, and you want to get them up to over 100. And so you need those infusions to get that ultimate benefit.
Yes. I also, another question. I started taking glycine, life extension glycine. And I was just wondering, does that have any relationship to the thing that's sprayed on vegetables? What's it called? Glycoside?
The glycophosphate herbicide? No. No relationship.
No. Okay.
Glyco is used in a lot of different chemical names. No problem.
Last question? Guess that was it. All right. Thank you, Bill. And if you have any other questions, one more down here. Okay. Here we go.
Is there any way that we can actually get off of our thyroid medication, or not medication or supplements? Can we reverse that so we can be free of that?
Not that I know of, but there's different types of thyroid drugs. And if you're not happy with the way the one is working for you, try some other ones and get some very in-depth blood tests to see which ones work the best? It sounds like you've tried a lot and they probably haven't worked for you, but for well, you might want to get blood tests done every 30 days and try to see what can you do to mobilize your T3. That's the metabolically active form of thyroid that you really need. My favorite drug is Cytomel, 25 micrograms twice a day. We've gotten some really nice results with that. When you take Synthroid, that's T4, it's got to be degraded into the metabolically active T3. And sometimes people don't have that enzyme to do it. Okay, and the Armor's good. And that's helped a lot of people. But if Armor isn't doing it for you, consider Cytomel. That's C-Y-T-O-M-E-L. It's a generic, costs very little, and 25 micrograms twice a day. That may give you the metabolically active form of thyroid you need.
Question back here, Bill.
If a person is 90 years old, for instance, and it's healthy, what do they have to do to live 110 years or 120? Healthy, the way they are.
Well, I think we all know the general ways to reduce disease risk as far as diet and physical activity and avoiding toxins. I think we know all that in this room. But as far as intervening into degenerative aging, they should undergo NAD plus infusions. They should consider, once we get our data back, the dasatinib drug, which is available. It's an approved drug. It's just not approved to treat aging yet. We have been involved in a study in California where we've tested it on older people. So far, the preliminary results are encouraging. And then the rapamycin, very interesting results with that. So those are 3 interventions that are available right now. You can go to a doctor and have them prescribed. You can have the infusions done. So if you're 90 years of age, I would suggest that those interventions be considered.
Okay, good. Now, if you have other questions, you can talk with Bill directly, as he'll be downstairs. Yes, I'll take that. I have the honor to work on the Rad Festival with both Bill and Dr. Natasha Vita-More. The Rad Fest is a once-a-year gathering of the largest gathering of those that are interested in unlimited lifespans. This year, it'll be in September. In 2018, it'll be in September. And if you're interested in learning more about the Rad Fest, please come and talk with me or with Natasha or with Bill. We'll give you some information about it. Or who has been to the Rad Fest in the past? Rich, Paul? Back here, David. So talk to one of us and we'll give you some information about that. It's not something you do want to miss. How many are here for the very first time tonight? It's your first time here tonight. Wow, that's great. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people. Great. Glad to have you all. I hope you can come back. Next month we'll be on the 3rd Thursday. In December we'll be on the 2nd Thursday. And the PowerPoints from tonight will be available. If you missed anything, the PowerPoints that you saw tonight, the presentations, will be on our website in the next few days. And in about 45 minutes, the live stream that was made here, the filming that was made here, will be available on our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to watch it again tonight when you go home. What is it?
We think that the 14th is the 2nd Thursday.
Yes, the 2nd Thursday in December, but the 3rd Thursday in November. So it's the 3rd Thursday in November, the Thursday before Thanksgiving in November, but the 2nd Thursday in December. Thank you. Yes, yes. We have brochures on the table downstairs, but go to perpetual.life, www.perpetual.life. It'll bring you to the website, thechurchofperpetuallife.org, and in the upper left corner, you'll be able to see the YouTube channels, and you'll be able to watch the YouTube stream that has been recorded. That'll be available in about 45 minutes. You can tell your friends, your neighbors, your family, the people you work with, all about that. They can watch this presentation. So remember, next month in November, the 3rd Thursday, and in December, the 2nd Thursday of the month. So we're going to be earlier as you go along, and then we'll be back to regular in January. All right, and I'll send all of you who have given us your email addresses, I'll send this information out to you so that you'll have this for your calendars. Okay, also, the Rescue Elders brochures are available. Thank you, Tanya, for bringing them. The brochures for the Rescue of Elders is downstairs on the free table. Be sure to get one of those as well. Take those brochures and the brochures from the Church of Perpetual Life, give them to your friends, and invite them back next month so we can have some fun. Now, down we have our chef who has prepared a meal for you, a delicious meal of chicken or fish or vegetables. And we have that downstairs, so join us for dinner downstairs, and you can also then meet with, in person, Natasha and Bill and ask them your questions. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you again next month.
It's called Forever Young. May the good Lord be with you down every road you roll. And may sunshine and happiness surround you when you're far from home. And may you grow to be proud, dignified and true. And do unto others as you'd have done to you. Be courageous and be brave, and in my heart you'll always stay. Forever young, forever young, forever young, forever young. May good fortune be with you, may your guiding light be strong. Build a stairway to heaven with a prince or a vagabond. And may you never love in vain, and in my heart you will remain. Forever young, forever young, forever young, forever young, forever young, forever young. Forever young. And when you finally fly away, I'll be hoping that I served you well. For all the wisdom of a lifetime, no one can ever tell. But whatever road you choose, I'm right behind you, win or